Turns out you can Yelp a whole city. This is the Yelp page for Colorado Springs, Colorado. The entire city of Colorado Springs apparently gets 3.5 stars out of 5. And yes, as one person pointed out, it is weird to review a whole city all at once on Yelp. Quote, seriously? We're reviewing the entire city of Colorado Springs? Wink, smiley face? But mostly the two things people mention when they are reviewing Colorado Springs on Yelp are, number one, it has very, very pretty mountains, and number two, focus on the family. People on Yelp, at least, cannot help but point that out constantly. That focus on the family, the right-wing evangelical group, is really a very big presence in town. Focus on the Family has been around since the late 70s, founded by an evangelical Christian leader who had studied psychology. His name is James Dobson. Focus on the Family started out in California, but in 1991, they picked up all 400 of their employees and they made a new home base for themselves in Colorado Springs. At the time, they said it was just an economic decision. Colorado was cheaper. They wouldn't have to pay as high a salaries as they had to pay in California, and they did have a really big staff. But Focus on the Family moved to Colorado, and under James Dobson, they went on to become a really big player in Republican Party politics. Remember, in 2008, it was a big hubbub when James Dobson refused to endorse John McCain for president against Barack Obama until the way last minute in the campaign. Mr. Dobson really wanted Mike Huckabee instead, and he did not like Mr. McCain, but he grudgingly, lately, gave him his endorsement. One of the many side projects launched by Focus on the Family after they moved to Colorado Springs was kind of a sister organization called Love One Out. It was an organization designed to cure people of being gay. They would help you pray the gay away. Homosexuality is treatable, so if you end up gay, it's just your fault for refusing to be treated and cured. As Focus on the Family got bigger and more influential over the years, it ended up turning Colorado Springs into almost kind of a company town. Colorado Springs became the evangelical capital of the country by some people's measure. And that, of course, had huge repercussions for the town. Just ask Yelp. But it also had repercussions for one specific branch of the United States military. The HQ for Focus on the Family is just a very, very short drive away from the United States Air Force Academy, which was already in Colorado Springs when Focus on the Family moved there in the 1990s. But in the last couple of decades, there have been signs of struggle over what's been called the outsized influence of evangelical beliefs and conservative Christian values on the Air Force Academy, on the institution, on the faculty, and on the student body, which of course is the elite soon-to-be officer corps of the U.S. Air Force. In 2006, some Air Force recruiters and recent Academy graduates filed a lawsuit against the Air Force alleging illegal religious coercion against cadets and pressure to proselytize to new recruits. They said since the late 1990s, they had been subject to, quote, aggressive proselytizing and had received lower performance reviews if they didn't attend prayer group and church. They said they were told that they needed to accept Jesus in order to be able to do their Air Force jobs. Around that same time, a chaplain at the Air Force Academy spoke out publicly about what she called a systemic and pervasive problem of religious proselytizing. She was a chaplain. She said she tried to help fix the problem at the Academy, but her attempts were watered down by her superiors. She attributed the problem, in part, quote, to the Academy's location in Colorado Springs. There's significant crossover between the leadership of the Academy and those organizations and churches in or near Colorado Springs, including Focus on the Family. That was the 1990s. By 2010, an internal Air Force survey showed that 41% of cadets at the Academy still reported feeling like they were being proselytized to by evangelical Christians while they were cadets, that they were being pressured to accept the specific values of a specific religion while they were training to become Air Force officers. In light of this history, it's kind of long history now, when news broke this week that the Air Force Academy had hired in 2009 a leader in the ex-gay movement to oversee the mandatory counseling program for all Academy cadets. They hired him in 2009. They promoted him to oversee that counseling program in 2011. When that story broke this week, that instantly became a really big deal. The story was broken by John Aravosis at America Blog after an Academy graduate who's on the board of OutServe, the National Organization for LGBT Service Members, Air Force Lieutenant Josh Seafried. He visited the Academy and discovered that Dr. Michael Rosebush was the chief of coaching development at the Air Force Academy, and he had a decades-long history as a counselor who believed he could turn gay men straight through religious counseling. The job he had right before he came to the Air Force was being the president of Coaching Confidant, in which he would charge you a fee to talk to you over the phone in a way that he said would make you not gay anymore. This was his professional career before coming to the Air Force. He wrote books about curing gayness. He was a director at the big Cure the Gay groups at Narth and Exodus International. Exodus International actually acquired Focus on the Family's Pray Away the Gay group, Love One Out, before Exodus itself went out of business earlier this year. Dr. Michael Rosebush's entire professional career has been counseling people to try to make gay men not gay anymore. He also worked for Focus on the Family itself. He served as vice president there for a time. There's nothing about the Air Force Academy leadership right now, or the Air Force leadership right now, that indicates that they're driven by some anti-gay agenda. And they clearly do not want to be known as an anti-gay institution. The superintendent of the academy met with the LGBT group on campus this week after the story broke. The Air Force has taken steps this week to reach out to the media. They've tried to explain why they hired Dr. Rosebush, and they never say it had anything to do with his lifelong career of trying to turn gay people into straight people. They say he just designed and analyzed their coaching program. They stress that he doesn't do any one-on-one coaching with the cadets. They say over and over and over again, don't worry, he does not personally coach or counsel the cadets. He just oversees the whole counseling program. And okay. But the fact that you're trying to make the public feel better about this situation by telling people that he's not personally interacting with the cadets one-on-one kind of begs the question. Why is he on staff in the first place? Why did you hire him? Especially in light of the very specific recent history of the Air Force Academy. Why would a quack ex-gay therapist with decades of experience doing that kind of quack ex-gay therapy be your hire to oversee anything, much less the mandatory counseling program for all U.S. Air Force Academy cadets? Joining us now for the interview tonight is Scott Hines. Scott Hines was a distinguished graduate of the Air Force Academy in 1992. By his senior year, he was commanding a third of the cadet force. He was gay, and of course he had to be closeted. The Air Force Academy referred him as a cadet to Ted Haggard's New Life Church in Colorado Springs for him to undergo therapy designed to turn him into a straight man. It didn't take. Mr. Hines is now a city council member in Rancho Mirage, California. He's also a former mayor of that city. Mr. Hines, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
I got to ask first, let me ask you, in terms of that long introduction, if anything about there, having been there as a gay cadet, strikes you wrong, or if any of that doesn't resonate with you in terms of your experience, and also just your reaction to this news about the counseling program.
Well, I think you're very accurate in painting what is really a decades-long history. And the Academy's been working very hard, particularly in the last 5 to 6 years, to really overcome this culture that's really developed at the Academy that's very much influenced by the community that's around them. My reaction to the news this week was one of being horrified. You know, I experienced conversion therapy several times in my time in the Air Force, but as a cadet, I was referred through the New Life Church and then to a reparative therapy program in Colorado Springs, which I secretly participated in. This was pre-Don't Ask, Don't Tell, keep in mind. You know, as a trailer park kid, this was my ticket out of poverty to go to the Academy, so I wasn't going to talk to anybody about this on campus. And in that program, I suffered a lot of trauma. You know, this is a harmful type of therapy that...
You were referred by the Academy to go do it?
I was. I went to the Cadet Counseling Center and said, you know, I'm struggling, and I used all the terms without saying, I think I'm gay. And the captain at the time was a member of New Life Church, put me over there. Mr. Haggard took me under his wing. I was involved in a men's group of other men that were struggling, many who were active duty as well, and then put into a counseling program that ended up being quite destructive in my life.
And then, in terms of it being destructive, you did graduate from the Academy as a very well-regarded and decorated cadet and went on to a long active duty career in the Air Force. What kind of trouble did that counseling cause you? When you say it was damaging, what do you mean?
Well, as is often the case, men who claim to be ex-gay are not ex-gay, and my ex-gay therapist turned out to not be so ex-gay and became quite a predator. And so...
Sexually toward you?
Yeah. Yes, without getting into a lot of details, as I've really tried to put that in the past in my life, it was obviously very detrimental. I've not talked to many people about this, Rachel, not my family and not others, and it brings up a lot of emotion. So you can imagine when I heard this week that a reparative therapist is heading these programs and put right in the middle of this, given my experiences and what I probably suspect are the experiences of other young cadets, it was just horrifying.
One of the things, when you reached out to us when we first broadcast this story, one of the things I found striking is that somebody who had been an exception to your bad experience around these issues at the Academy, somebody who was a major then, who was instructor at the Academy, who is now the superintendent of the Academy, a three-star general.
Yes.
My guess then is that you have confidence in her, somebody who had been humane toward you on this issue, that the Academy can fix this.
And you're referring to Lieutenant General Michelle Johnson,
That's right.
who's now the superintendent of the Academy. You know, Michelle at the time was a major. She was a political science instructor and my academic advisor. And I really credit her with helping me deal with that. She never knew about it. She never knew that happened. She never knew I was gay. But she went a long way, as every instructor there should, in building my self-esteem, giving me hope for the future, really inspiring me to serve my country. I credit her with probably saving me during that time of depression and really some suicidal thoughts after having gone through that trauma. Today, I am so proud that she is the new face of leadership at the Air Force Academy. She is a special person. First female cadet commander at the Academy. She was a Rhodes Scholar. She's now the first female commander of the Academy. And I have supreme confidence that if anybody can turn around this culture at the Academy, it's her.
It feels like, from their reaction to this reporting today, which if they scurried at first, it felt to me, in terms of having dealt with a lot of PR operations when we cover stories that don't make people look good, felt like they scurried at first, but now what they are doing, at least, it feels like there's a real commitment, both not to be known as an anti-gay institution, but also to fix this. I would expect, I'll just speak personally, I would expect that this situation is not sustainable, that they cannot keep somebody in charge of counseling now that, if only through the press, they know his history.
You know, it makes you wonder if it's a little out of her hands. It's definitely got the Pentagon's attention at this point. At least he needs to be reassigned, and I want to hear emphatically that he denounces reparative therapy before he has any interaction with cadets at the Academy. And I really hope that Michelle is able to turn the culture of the Academy. You know, what happens, Rachel, is that people, Air Force officers who are Christian fundamentalists, work assignments to the Academy because they know then they can get follow-on hires at Focus on the Family and these Christian organizations. It's very much a planning for your future type of an assignment to the Academy. So it makes sense that you're promoting your Christian beliefs to get your street cred while you're there teaching, so that afterwards you have a hope that James Dobson will hire you to his staff.
It's like a geopolitical accident that we're all living with the consequences of.
Absolutely.
Scott Hines, Air Force Academy graduate, city council member now in Rancho Mirage, California, went on to a distinguished active duty career in the Air Force, we should say, after your time at the Academy. It's a real honor to have you here to talk to us about this. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for drawing attention to this. Appreciate it.
We'll be right back.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Washington. It's gridlock, division, bitter partisanship. But one jobs plan brings both sides together.